my new favorite song. Isn't that why we're here? We're just a nobody trying to tell everybody about somebody that can make a difference. That's why we're here. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania, in a real small town, and I was not raised in a Christian home. My dad was an alcoholic, and he also worked on the railroad, so he wasn't home very much. Didn't really know him, which is kind of sad. And very dysfunctional family. My family took the fun right out of dysfunctional, but all along, God had his hand on me and his eye on me. And this will give my age away, but in the 70s, hitchhiking was acceptable. It was an acceptable mode of transportation for some people. And my older brother was hitchhiking. We lived out in the country, and he was picked up by a Baptist preacher. And the pastor took him home. It was about 8 miles out of town, and said, I'll give you a ride on one condition, that I can come in and meet your family. Well, like any good Baptist preacher, he came in and promptly invited us all to church. And my parents were very nice. They were very cordial, and they said, oh, yes, of course, with no intent to ever go, but they sent the 3 oldest children. That was me. I'm the middle child. That came up earlier, too. So I had an older brother and an older sister, and we went to church, and that's where I heard the gospel and gave my life to Christ. I was 10. And years later, I tried to find that gentleman, that pastor, because he has no idea that what he did that day affected my life for eternity. And so my encouragement to you in that is, you have no idea the little things and the big things that we do on a daily basis can impact somebody forever. Isn't that cool? Hitchhiking. I just love that part of my story. So we lived in the country, and so my growth in Jesus was pretty slow for about 2 years. Then we moved into town, and I was invited to go to Pioneer Girls, or Boys Brigade. Of course, I went to Pioneer Girls because I'm a girl. And I didn't know what that was, but it sounded fun, and it was a Wednesday night, and so I started going to that with some neighbors. And I had done that for a while, and then started going to church on Sundays. And my spiritual life took off, and I was just growing. I loved what I did, and my parents did not understand. Now, I was the good kid. They didn't have to worry about me. I never had a curfew, and I was a good kid. But they didn't like the fact that I was involved in church. And my mother called me a Jesus freak. And she didn't really mean it in a nice way. And 2 days, it was 2 or 3 days before my father died suddenly, that I was forbidden to ever go again. And so my father died when I was 15 years old. Very suddenly, he was mowing the lawn and had a heart attack. And my mom watched that church that she didn't like. She watched them come around and love on us as a family. They did the dinner for his funeral. They stood in line waiting to talk to me at the viewing. And my mother was just really impressed by that and was just really watching. So I was 15. A year later, my grandmother died. And a year after that, my mother died from colon cancer. So if you're doing your math, by the time I was 18 years old, I had lost both parents. And it was hard. But I was never alone, because I was always surrounded with people who loved me and were looking out for me and helping me. And 2 months before my mother died, my pastor led her to the Lord. So I know that I will see her again. And my grandmother was led to the Lord by our youth pastor and myself. So when my mom came to know the Lord, I was convinced that God would heal her. I was 17, and she was a believer, and we spent time. I read scripture to her. We prayed together, and there was no doubt in my young mind that he would heal her. And when he didn't, I was blown out of the water. So we were at the hospital, and we had taken her by ambulance because she wasn't doing well, and they put you in this little room. Well, I didn't know when they put you in that little room that usually that's bad news. I didn't know that because I was 17. And so we were in that room, and our pastor and friends had met us there, and they were encouraging us and praying with us. And I think everybody in the room kind of knew what was coming. I didn't. And I was talking and saying, I'd like to spend the night with her, and I'll stay here and all of that. When the doctor came in, and he was an ER doc, so he didn't have a really good bedside manner, and this is how he told us. He stood in the doorway. He didn't even come all the way in. And he said, she was gone before I saw her. Well, I was just shocked because I was so convinced he would heal her. And I think because she was my second parent, that was the other reason. I needed my mom. So I walked out by myself over by the ambulance bay, in the emergency room. And I was angry. For 15 minutes, I was angry, and I felt all these emotions, and I wanted to kick and scream and bite. And I said, God, I don't understand. I could walk away from you right now and turn my back on you because I don't understand. But in the same breath, I said, but I can't. Because I need you now more than ever. So that day, I will never forget it. My salvation, any doubts, anything, people say they doubt who God is or doubt their salvation. It was sealed that day for me because I knew I couldn't move forward without him. And that doesn't mean life will be easy, but I can tell you that he doesn't waste anything. Everything he brings into your path is for a reason. And I miss my mom every day. When they died, they had no grandchildren, and now they have 9. My husband and my daughter are a huge part of my life, and they don't know who they are. But that's okay, because I know that I'll see my mom again, and I sure hope I'll see my dad again, but I don't know. I was going to say something really important there. And I have no idea what it was. Woo. So even though my parents have been gone a really long time, you never get too old for your mom. But again, God has surrounded me with some amazing people, for which I'm very thankful for. And something interesting that happened, how am I doing on time? Good. Something interesting that happened, well, God keeps showing up and showing me that he's in this. And like one of the other gals that shared also proves that nothing is wasted, is how often I get to share my story with people and get to share what God has done, because nothing is wasted. And 4 years ago, I found out that I had a sister that we didn't know about. And my mom had a baby girl 3 years before she married my dad, 3.5 years before. And in those days, that was not okay. And my grandmother, her mother, sent her away to a home for girls. And because that was shameful back then. And my mom did, from what I know of my mom and my grandmother, my mom wouldn't have ever given up that baby. I believe she was forced to. She was 17 when she was pregnant, and then 18 when the baby was born. Nothing was ever spoken of that growing up. We didn't know. But I always knew there was something between my grandma and my mom. They kind of had a love-hate relationship. And so when I found out about Jeannie 4 years ago and got to meet her 2 years ago, it made a lot of sense. And so, of course, I was skeptical. When you find out that you have a sister, you're like, mm-hmm. And so I was skeptical, but my husband said, look her up on Facebook, right? Isn't that the first thing you do? So I did, and it was like staring at my mom. She looked just like my mom, And her and I have so much in common, and we were never, we didn't know each other. So I got to meet her. And again, it was just like a reminder of God saying, yes, you lost your mom, but now you have your sister. And what's really interesting about Jeannie is my mom's name was Peggy Jean. Everybody called her Jean. And when my mom had this baby, she was with her for 2 weeks in this home. Can you imagine having your baby with you for 2 weeks and then it being taken from you? And she named her Susan Kay. And when this baby was adopted by this family, they named her Jean. Now, did they know that was my mom's name? I don't know. But they named her Jean, and she goes by Jeannie. But it's just one of those things, and it's been a real full circle for Jeannie as well, too. Just this healing. And even though it happened a long time ago, it's very much a part of who I am. Because at 17 years old, I was an orphan. And I was the first one to graduate from high school in my family and the only one to go to college. Well, besides Jeannie, but I didn't know her then. And but she is a retired dermatology nurse, and she's about 10 years older than me. But all of that has helped to shape me and form me. Does it define me? No, I don't think it defines me, but it definitely is part of who I am. And a reminder that God doesn't waste anything. I could be bitter, but I don't want to be bitter. And when negative things happen to us and hard things happen to us, we have a choice. They can make us bitter or they can make us better. And that might sound trite, but I don't want to be bitter. I've been around too many bitter people. I found this verse just recently, and I just love this, and this is a promise in here for you. It's in Habakkuk 1:5. Look at the nations and watch and be utterly amazed. For I am going to do something in your days that you would not believe even if you were told. Isn't that cool? I don't know that I've ever read that in Scripture before, but I love it, so I'm going to read it again. You can tell I'm a school teacher because I repeat myself. Habakkuk 1:5, look at the nations and watch and be utterly amazed, for I, the Lord, am going to do something in your days, in our days, that you would not believe even if you were told. Had someone told me that I would have lost my parents by age 18 or be living in Alaska, I wouldn't have believed it, and I would have laughed, especially at the Alaska part. But and this is our second time here. We were here, the military brought us here in 92 to 04, and then now we're back, and we've been back for 6 years, and my husband retired. But my encouragement for you today is God has something for you. Even if you are in the valley and you're going through some tough stuff, God doesn't waste anything. And he has something for us that if someone were to tell you, you could not even believe it. He loves you, and he has a plan for you, and it's good.